I should probably preface this by saying that there's going to be a lot of Game of Thrones spoilers. Probably fairly mild, but many. Hello, Amalia, my dear, and welcome back to less interesting style of vlogging. Today I want to talk to you about why I still watch Game of Thrones. The North remembers! Winter is coming! Chaos is a ladder. So, Game of Thrones, right? Hugely popular television show based on a really popular set of books by a guy who really doesn't like women. We used to both be huge fans of Game of Thrones. I started watching the show during its second season, and then I ended up going back and reading the first book and then getting completely hooked, and I have been utterly hooked since. You made an interesting decision to stop watching the show at the beginning of this most current season, which is the beginning of the end. There's technically another season, but episode-wise, it's basically one season broken into two. Like, they just don't want us to be happy, which is obvious from the plot of the show, that you shouldn't expect to be happy, but like, you know, I thought that I would kind of tell you why I kept watching the show and how that's paid off or hasn't paid off, because it's definitely been, I mean, you know, it's a lot of hours of my life that I spend watching, not only watching the show, but interacting with the fandom and reading recaps, reading fan theories, doing research, talking about it so much, thinking about it so much, and it's a lot of time and energy. Here's why I am still watching Game of Thrones. I very nearly stopped watching the show after the 5th season, because in the 5th season, the amount of punishment being doled out to the women in the show, whether they were high status, low status, whether they were strong, or whether they were sort of pawns, it didn't matter. Even the women who were extremely powerful and strong were being relegated to either being like Daenerys and being just like left to be just basically boring filler, never really doing anything, or being horrifically raped, tortured, killed, or killing themselves, or just, there's just so, it got really hard to watch. It got to the point where, you know, of course there's been sex and murder in the whole show, and there's been rape in the whole show, but it was like every week, and it just kept getting so much more violent, and it just got so tiring to see every woman in the show being punished. It got really hard to watch, and it was really hard to balance that with the fact that the plot wasn't going anywhere, and it just felt really lackluster, and it wasn't something that I thought that I could do. And the end of the 5th season ended really well, and I sat and thought about it, and I thought about it all summer in between seasons, and okay, here's why I came back to Game of Thrones. Number one, I wanted to at least give the 6th season a chance, because there had been a huge outcry from the fans about the treatment of women on the show, and traditionally they had been fairly aware of the fans, and they'd been pretty consistent about addressing their concerns. I thought I'd give them a shot. Number two, I knew there were only 2 seasons left. I'm kind of a completionist. And number three, I wanted to see what they would do with the story after they got out of George R.R. Martin's narrative. George R.R. Martin's books are fine. They're good. I mean, they're well written. They're terrible to women. It's a lot worse what happens in the book when Ramsay marries Sansa. And I wanted to see, once we got out of having to follow those stories, once we got to the part in the narrative where it made sense for the women to start having agency again, to start being power, like they're set up to potentially be able to turn the tide, I wanted to see if they were going to take that chance. And they did. The 6th season came back with just pretty much every single one of the women, whether on the side of good or on the side of bad, coming back strong and exacting revenge against those who had hurt them. I mean, you have Arya becoming just like this fierce assassin. You have Sansa actually like really, you know, winning the Battle of the Bastards and getting to seek revenge on Ramsay, and also taking control of being in charge. And you've got Cersei just being like, fuck everyone I'm the queen and taking control. And I was really satisfied with that. So I thought I'd keep going. And okay. So now, we're almost done with the first half of the 7th season, ostensibly the entire 7th season, but let's be real. And there are a lot of problems with this season. It's moving too fast, there's a lot of gaps in logic, but it's also like, it's a lot of fan service, but it's really fun. And it's been really enjoyable watching a lot of things I've been waiting to happen for so long, so many reunions, so many like just wonderful things happening. And just like, okay, another big reason that I still watch Game of Thrones is because I love fandom. I love fandom. I love people who take a thing that they like and they tear it into all of its tiny pieces and they just examine them, and then they write up convenient articles on the internet for me to read, and then I can talk about those things like as if I know. I just get so sucked into things where there's that depth of like love coming from the team, like the people. I just think that's so much fun. And you know, I was completely obsessed with Harry Potter, and that fandom is still very alive. And so the fact that there's new Game of Thrones all the time gives me like a fandom to chew on. It's very cool. I mean, I still am. I got into this, and honestly, it feels kind of good to be actively engaged in something that's really popular. It's fun that I'm part of the hashtag that's happening every Sunday night, Monday morning. It's exciting to be part of the office talk, and it's just really like, it's an easy conversation starter. You watch Game of Thrones? Oh my god, can't we talk about Gendry? Spoilers. So, Game of Thrones ends this Sunday, and with it, I'm gonna be bummed. I really enjoy this part of my Sundays, and I'm really excited to see what happens to the characters, and I'm really excited to see what happens to the fans. I mean, I honestly think that's most of what I enjoy out of it, is just just the amount, like the volume of writing and critical thinking that comes out of this show. And it's really cool being part of this kind of moment in our cultural history. But it's just so fun. It's just so fun. And it's finally fun because the danger that the people are in is less based on their gender. And even I would say less based on their status, because it seems to me that we're kind of don't give a shit about class anymore in the world of Game of Thrones. We've also narrowed it down so much that we don't really deal with people outside of a very core group, and they're all of a similar class. I think that's really what keeps me, and will keep me going back, even though we're going to have to wait 100,000 years for the next season. Don't leave us frozen in anticipation. Ding. It's nice to finally see these characters that I watched go through so much and got so attached to finally being who I wanted them to be this whole time. Being strong, being savvy. I mean, they're making some really dumb mistakes, but we all know what I'm talking about. Arya and Sansa, just what the fuck? I feel like it's really nice to know that a whole bunch of other people are watching a show, and they're watching the women this year being completely non-sexualized, being extremely strong and powerful both mentally and physically. And it makes me really happy that this huge group of people have watched the same thing that I've watched and are now seeing these same characters in this light. And pop culture has a huge influence in our lives in a way that I don't think many people give it credit for. Pop culture it's the day-to-day way that we experience our greater, deeper cultural meaning. We had a show that was treating women terribly, and there was outcry from a huge amount of people, and they listened. Cats are caterwauling. And they changed, and that means a lot to me. So that's why I watched Game of Thrones. I will probably talk about how I felt about the finale later. Alright, I adore you. I think you are swell as heck. I will catch you on the flip side. Oh, I hate that. Anyways, I love you very much, and we should figure out like a sign off, because this is not, if you leave me on my own to just try and finish something, I'm gonna keep talking and it's just gonna get weirder because I don't know how to not. Okay, love you, bye.